Welcome to episode 110 of the Sovereign Collective podcast. Today I am joined by my very good friend Derek Fleming of New Earth Organics and Vital Essence Treasured Tonic Herbs. And we're going into all things medicinal mushrooms today. I've been wanting to do an interview on this topic for a very long time, so I'm stoked that it's finally here. And this is a food group that I've included in my daily practice for close to 20 years. And I do call this a food group, not a supplement. Yes, you can get mushrooms in capsules. They have to go through a process to make them bioavailable and useful in the body. But just because they do that, we've been doing these types of things, extracting, making teas and fermenting, soaking, whatever, for a very long time. So they have been processed in a way to make them bioavailable. But for me, it's not about supplementation. It's about food. I can add these into my elixirs and my even ice cream or my soups and stews and baking and muffins and bread and whatever. So I encourage you to listen to this interview to the end. We also talk about elk velvet antler and some pearl powder and a couple things because he actually has a wide array of products available. And I have a tendon thing going on, so we talk about a couple things at the end that could help me nourish my tendon regrowth, including the pearl powder that I've talked about with Matt Roski a couple times on the podcast, and he gets into a little bit more of the chemistry, what makes it so special. So tune in all the way to the end, share it with your friends and family. It's really interesting. There's lots of great info. And if you do choose to purchase from newearthorganics.com, be sure to use this code SASCHA10, SASCHA 10 to save on your purchase. And also remember, you can always go to sovereigncollective.org and click on the store. And then you can find all the coupon codes that I always have for you. So you can always use that code again. If you forgot what it was, just go to my site, click on the store, see what's available there, see how you can save using different links and different codes. So it's always there. And if you want to stay in touch in case I ever get removed off of any kind of social media or YouTube, what have you, then please sign up for my email list. I only email you when there are a few, exciting things to say, when I have podcast releases or there are specials, things like that. So I'd love for you to stay in touch so I can always keep you informed. And now on to the show. And thank you so much for listening. Hello, and welcome to the Sovereign Collective podcast, where we bring you real raw truth for your self-empowerment. I'm your host, Sasha Calaboda, and I believe that you can stand on your own 2 feet, but that you don't have to do it alone. I love learning from people who continually strive to raise the bar, to go against mainstream thinking, and who dare to question the general consensus. People who risk being ridiculed or even risk the loss of their professional status as they bravely question the common narratives and challenge the rest of us to expand our minds and to reconsider what we think we already know. Join me in learning how to take control of your health and your mind so that you can have the energy to think more clearly and the confidence to step up and take responsibility for all aspects of your life. We promise to never censor here because I believe you are strong enough to hear the real, raw truth to make up your own mind. If you like what you find here at the Sovereign Collective podcast, then please share with your friends and family. I so appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. And now, on to the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another interview of the Sovereign Collective podcast. Today, I am doing an interview that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. And this is with Derek Fleming of New Earth Organics, an amazing tonic herb medicinal mushroom company here in Alberta, Canada. And we're going to get into the topic of medicinal mushrooms. And I actually interviewed Derek. He was one of my earliest interviews, interview number 7 years ago.
Not number one.
Years, not number one.
We're working at number one. Yes.
So we've known each other for a long time. I don't know, 12, 13 years, maybe more. I don't know.
Probably. Probably.
Yeah, about that, I think. My son was I go by the age of my kid. I think he was about 4.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, so 13 years. So it's been a long time. And in that time, Derek has grown his company. He's educated the people in and around Calgary and in Alberta on the benefits of tonic herbs, medicinal mushrooms. So if you want to learn more about the Chinese perspective to medicine, tonic herbs, what they are, what their benefits are, then check out that interview. It's really good. It's an older one, but it's really good. And this is timeless information. This is the thing. We want to always know about this because it's an amazing tool to get back to bring the body back into balance. But today we're going to focus mostly on medicinal mushrooms. Derek is an Eastern Western trained herbalist with tons of knowledge, great products. If you decide to shop at Derek's site, newearthorganics.com, use the code SASHA10, SASCHA 10 to save on your purchase. And Derek, why are we talking about medicinal mushrooms? Why did you get into them? What led you to creating your company before we get into mushrooms specifically?
So why did I start New Earth Organics? Several different reasons, but I mean, my passion's always been in natural medicine, plant medicine, ethnobotany, getting back to our roots as human beings. Like, I think, we learn a lot of interesting things moving forward from a scientific approach, but I'm always kind of fascinated by how people survived and thrived in the past. And what I came to the conclusion is that food works. Like, food is a fundamental thing that we kind of skip over nowadays.
Yeah.
Especially there was a time, not too long ago where it was always the best new supplement to take, or the best extraction, or the best standardization, or megadose this or do that. And while some of that is pretty cool and some of that's pretty interesting, what kind of floats my boat and always gets me more passionate is, hey, how do people live so healthfully without these kind of fancy supplements? And what were they doing that we're not doing now? And so I think the whole food aspect of that gets glazed over, and realizing, hey, there's some fundamental aspects to human, physiology, to our kind of our reason that we're here living in this reality. These check boxes that we need to kind of check off in order to live healthfully, to honor our biology, right? And so that led me to researching and looking more at, whole food herbs, medicinal mushrooms. How can we incorporate these foods into our diets, like kind of from a modern angle? And basically, when I started this, years ago, I think it's like 14, I think maybe going on 15 years ago now, there wasn't as many players, let's say, in the medicinal mushroom field. It was harder back then to go get like reishi mushroom, for example, at the store. You used to have to go to like the Chinatown market, or kind of see if you could order it. And now we live like in the best of times, where we can get those herbs so much more easily. But again, back then, there wasn't that avenue to get these items. So it led me on a quest to kind of get them for myself, to try and embrace things like pine tree pollen and medicinal mushrooms and these kind of tonic herbs that were used as food medicine. And it kind of snowballed there into realizing, hey, there's other people kind of on that wavelength with me that want these items. So how can I facilitate that to them? My background being trained as an herbalist, from more of a clinical standpoint, was something that was fascinating and something I did enjoy. But at the time too, I figured, hey, I think I can help more people by introducing them to those fundamental check boxes, by giving them these, whether it's food or whether it's knowledge, but or activities, by educating them on more of a, I don't want to say a massive scale, but more of a broad scale, instead of like on a one-on-one clinical scale. And I think you need both, because I always say that our health is in our own hands. When it comes down to it, no one knows you as best or as well as you do. And I find that I'm not going on a side tangent, but I find that's kind of a caveat or a problem when people are looking for help, looking for wellness, going to see practitioner after practitioner after practitioner. And God bless those practitioners that we have them for sure to do those one-on-one. But I also think that you need to take your health in your own hands and get your horse by the reins, so to speak,
100%.
and kind of educate yourself to be able to heal yourself. Our culture is not raised on that knowledge they are, let's say, in traditional China, where we're taught like these food herbs and, hey, you should probably add this to your soup, or this to your broth, or this to your tea to do X, Y, and Z. We're not given that knowledge. So kind of a full circle, long-winded approach is, this is the reason I started a company like this, to get these healthful foods back into people's hands, educate them on how to use them, and kind of, send them on their merry way a little bit, and to explore their own health journey, right? Give them the tools necessary, and then a little bit of education, and then, hey, teach the man to fish, so to speak, right? The bird to fly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the beginning point of it. And, as I go further into this, again, after, 14, 15 years, it's kind of even coming more full circle back to food I even hate to use the term as medicine, but food as medicine or food as a healing energy for the body. Because I think as we move forward, it's going to be harder to get supplements, to get these health food items at health food stores, supplements, extractions, all these things. I even think, not to get conspiratorial, but they're kind of the powers that be are gunning for our food supply a little bit.
Oh, yeah,
So
I think
yeah,
a little bit.
yeah. So
Yeah.
the more that we can educate ourselves, the more that we can again learn these traditional practices, incorporate these things into our life. I think the better we're going to be, and also the next generation. Like right now, like you and I were talking about my children beforehand, right? Two beautiful children. I'm constantly trying to educate them to give them those fundamentals now at a young age. Like, hey, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this is not a good thing. You're on your journey. You can figure that out. But if I give them the tools and that knowledge, let's see how that can then, snowball into their next generation and next generation. And I think that's how we can grow kind of that like-mindedness, uh, consciousness of getting back to the basics and trying to live a healthful life. Who doesn't want to live the best they can be, right?
Right,
Like
right,
honestly, like you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
right.
We're all trained by the media and everything to quest for money and fame, and now with social media, everyone's can be famous at once online. But if you don't have your health, right? If you don't have that fundamental aspect of your being, what do you have, right? It can all go away in a blink of an eye if you become unhealthy.
Yes.
So yeah,
And that's what I love
um,
about what you're saying, because I really try to focus on the fundamental basics here. Like sometimes we'll go off on other things, but fundamental basics. Yes, we're all different. Everybody says, oh, but I need this and I'm different than you. And we're all focusing on our differences in certain ways. But we all need real whole food. We need sunshine. We need proper sleep. We need the right light exposure, right? We need mineralization. We need some really basic fundamentals. We need to breathe properly, move our bodies. There's a lot of similarities in all of us. And I love that in addressing the fundamental basics and also teaching our kids, like, just grow up. Like, it's just, this is, make it normal again. We have a couple generations, I think, of people that grew up with no wisdom in their homes and they have to learn it for themselves at a later age. And it's very overwhelming because they've never thought about it until they reach a point where the system's not serving them and they're getting desperate and they're trying to figure it out and they're flailing because there's so much freaking information out there, right? So I love that, just growing up and understanding the basics from the get-go.
Yeah, like I've always said and preached about it maybe the proactive approach to health and wellness is the most important. Here, let me shut this window here. Get the car alarm going off. I don't know if that's picking up or
Can't hear
not.
it. It's fine.
But
Can't.
there's that fundamental approach that we need to learn, that proactive approach, because if you're always playing catch up, right? Like that defensive action, you're always kind of waiting for something to go wrong before you start addressing your health. Like you waited too long. It's not that you can't clean up the effects of illness, or ward off diseases in the body, but hey, wouldn't it be nice if we could get to a point where those don't even enter our realm of reality? That we're so bulletproof from everything. Like it's not like we won't get sick and have problems, but
Yeah.
let's look at the grand scheme of our life. If you don't have serious illness to contend with in your life and you're mobile and functional like 80s and 90s, like that's a huge win, right? And I think modern life is not conducive to that,
No,
unfortunately.
not
I
at
think
all.
it's the opposite. I think it's the opposite nowadays.
Yes.
And yeah, I just want, while I'm here, I want it to be a good time and a long time. So
100%.
that's what, yeah,
100%.
the whole mission is. The whole mission
Okay,
is.
awesome. Love that. So let's talk. So you have many offerings, and maybe we'll get into a few other ones at the end. But medicinal mushrooms are a large part of what you offer. And it's something that's
Hmm.
daily in my life. I know it's daily in your life, and it's an easy add-in in a lot of different ways. So historically, because I know historically, right, that this was the food of royalty, right? This was very revered foods for a reason. So the knowledge of them has been known for a long time. So tell us a little bit about the history and how that has changed over time and
Yeah.
what's so
You
special
know,
about the mushrooms.
what's so special? Well, I mean, it's an umbrella thing, like, but the history is too of medicinal mushrooms that people kind of aren't aware of is that fungi have been on this planet long before us. I believe it's something like 1.3 billion years of evolution. That fungal network has been on this planet, so to speak, for so much longer than we can even fathom in human
Mhm.
history. And I'll get back to why that is important. But as it stands, like nowadays, I'm forgetting what they're saying, and it's constantly changing on how many species they've identified in nature. But when it comes down to it, there's about 200, give or take. Again, we're always learning more. This is the thing I'll say right now off the get-go with medicinal mushrooms that I also find fascinating is there's no hard and fast rules or even hard and fast knowledge because what we think we knew or know seems to always be coming updated, learning more. Like we're just kind of scratching the surface on this ancient being called mushrooms that have been on this planet. So data, points that people throw out, not necessarily outdated at times, but I mean, there is what we best knew of at that time. So getting back to what I was saying, I think there's roughly about 200 species that humans collect as food and medicine on the planet out of millions of species. I think it's something like 1.2 million have been identified.
Wow.
Out of those 200, we're really only accessing, it's something like 7 or 8 medicinal mushrooms, a few culinary mushrooms, like a very small handful. Usually it's about 25 out of that 200 that people kind of hear about, which is also fascinating. So there's millions, over a million species out there, but we're just scratching the surface on some of them. The fascinating thing about medicinal mushrooms is, as a being, as an entity, as a living organism, we have a huge overlap of DNA with medicinal mushrooms. Last I had looked it up, it's 67 to 70% of a DNA overlap or genetic overlap with human beings.
Wow.
Medicinal mushrooms breathe oxygen, emit carbon dioxide. Like we're closer to mushrooms than mushrooms are to plants, even though people kind of group those two things together. So what's fascinating about that, and I guess this is your point of what's so cool or interesting you were asking about medicinal mushrooms. One of the cool things is we can now, because we have this genetic overlap, this DNA overlap, we can actually utilize or piggyback on a lot of that evolutionary history of medicinal mushrooms. What do I mean by that? Well, because of this strong cohesiveness or puzzle pieces of what mushrooms produce and their makeup to human beings, we can actually hijack their evolved immune system, their evolved digestive system, and consume that. And our body has an immunological or a physiological, I should say, response to those aspects of these medicinal mushrooms. So said in a different way, when we consume these medicinal mushrooms, we're utilizing their evolution or their biology, you could call it, even though it's not biology necessarily, but um, taking it into our human body, and there's a response to that. So it's basically like what I found fascinating back again when I started this is how this almost seems like, and you could go esoteric about it too, um, but it almost seems like fungi or medicinal mushrooms or mushrooms in general have been put on the planet for us and the planet. Like there's this real necessity, like we wouldn't be here without them. Like this symbiotic relationship that was, almost created way before humans even existed. And so to me, that's fascinating. When you start to learn more about the specific mushrooms, how they've been used, over history or throughout history, I should say, it starts to really open your eyes like, hey, this is pretty neat. Like, what's going on here? And I used to say this all the time as well, but when all these big, like, quote unquote, let's just, for lack of a better term, outbreaks happen or virus scares or whatever, you can take a step back and usually look at the fungi kingdom and find an example within the ones that we even know about that can maybe address those issues or those problems that are rising or that they're scaring us for. The medicinal mushrooms or the mushrooms in general, the fungi network on this planet through evolution has maybe come into contact with something like that before and already kind of overcome that. So, hey, so that would be smart if we relied on them. What I like to call the greatest ally for human beings is the mushroom kingdom. But we're going to rely on them, their evolution, their history, consuming their components, acting for us. So that's really, again, mind blowing to me, very exciting to me. When I used to talk about medicinal mushrooms, over 10 years ago, I'd educate a group. I'd often talk about new and novel compounds, right? That we're finding medicinal mushrooms all the time. We're still finding new and novel compounds. Like
Mhm.
when it comes down to it, one of the main groups that people like to throw around all the time when it comes to reishi mushroom is triterpenes or terpenoids.
Right.
There's terpenes. Those terpenes of reishi mushroom have been mapped somewhat, but only a few of them, and that's still very loosely, in my opinion and in my research. We know things like lucidinic acid is a triterpene in reishi mushroom, but do we really know concretely what it is doing? No, not necessarily at this point. So this is why it's also so fascinating, is that it's constantly evolving. And I mean, there's much more knowledgeable scholars out there on medicinal mushrooms than myself. I take this as an approach as a humble student. Hey, I just like learning about this. I think this is super cool. What can I learn? How can this benefit me, my friends, my family type of thing? So I'm sure there's some hardcore science nerds out there that are deeper down this rabbit hole than me, which is great. But even at that surface level, we barely are scratching that surface when it comes to these compounds. And that is fantastic. Sorry, my thing's going off here. Hopefully that didn't come through. Just an alarm going off. But yeah, so in a nutshell, like medicinal mushrooms are constantly evolving portion of herbology, science, and food as medicine. It gets down to a larger topic too of, the fruiting body of a mushroom, the mycelium of a mushroom. There's the kind of the disappointing part I find with all this, in my opinion, what's disappointing is how much marketing has come into play in the field of medicinal mushrooms because, big business gets in there, hey, we can make money doing this.
Yeah.
This is going to be our marketing angle, and it confuses the general consumer. It confuses us. And I'm more on a mission to, hey, let's kind of try and clear up that confusion because at the end of the day, we need these allies on our side, and we need to learn and arm ourselves with the correct knowledge, and so we can utilize them the best we can.
Right. Okay, cool. So before we get it, so I want to talk about similarities of the mushrooms because I know there's a lot of overlap, and then maybe get into some special uniqueness and like the personalities. Every mushroom seems to have its own little personality. But before that,
Mhm.
how are they benefiting the environment? How are they benefiting the planet? What are they doing in nature?
Oh, so it's such an interesting topic. I think it's always interesting or neat to bring up the movie Avatar was a movie that came out,
Yeah.
probably way more years ago than I realized, but they show like that mycelium network, they plug into it. So we can think of mycelium as basically internet of the planet. There's all sorts of reports out there, on how this mycelium in the ground, and if people aren't familiar with that, right, that's that fine network of fungal fibers that you'll kind of find under logs and dirt. But basically, it's in the soil structure throughout the planet. And basically, there's people talking about how these fungi networks can signal plants, signal environments. They can basically dictate on how an ecosystem is evolving. Their main job that people talk about is decomposition, right? The recycling on the planet, the renewing soil structure. And you know as well as I do in terms of when we talk about gardening, how important soil structure is for the planet, right? For Mother Earth. So mushrooms have a huge role to play in that, right? They're probably the most important role. And there's again different what's the right word, levels of fungi on the planet that deal with this, higher level fungi, lower level fungi. But basically, when it comes to one kind of overarching idea of what medicinal mushrooms do for the planet, is they're that main information highway of our ecosystems on the planet, right? So, and I know there's a lot of people working, and there was actually for the last several years on how we can utilize them to, do things like clean up oil spills and, make building materials and all sorts of interesting things. That stuff's all fascinating, and I wish that advanced even further than it has. Um, but yeah, like I mean, it's a fundamental aspect of our planet, and we wouldn't be here without them for that main ecosystem tuning, let's say.
Right. I wonder the impact of raping and pillaging this planet. What's that do
Yeah.
to that delicate balance of mycelium and information underground?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, I guess we'll find out. What's fascinating is that mushrooms have survived things like Chernobyl accidents, atomic bombs, like super doses of radiation. Mushrooms have survived through those kind of human devastations, let's say, or these human tragedies. So I don't think they're going anywhere. But again, I think we need to embrace a little bit more, or at least that understanding of, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah,
Because I think that's very important.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Especially when we need our
Oh,
own food and like, no, I was just gonna say, especially when we need to like get back to more sustainable agricultural farming practices, regenerative farming. Like this is where we need to embrace those fungi even more, because without them, we're on a crash course, a crash course with our food supply.
good Lord, are we ever? I mean, lab grown meat, lab made milk. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Now there's lab
are we
grown
living
cacao. I don't know if you've seen that.
lab grown cacao? No.
Yeah, yeah, that's the new one, and it's I'm trying to remember if it's one of the big players that is really putting a lot of money behind it, even the retail aspect. But there's lab grown cacao. Is that a global conspiracy or just how it is? Like, partly I understand why some of these companies would want that. They're like huge chocolate manufacturers and they can't get natural cacao anymore, so they're going to find a substitute. But I would almost appreciate it if we looked, hey, how can we get natural cacao back and let's put our money and time and effort into that instead of lab growing. And I understand there's a huge conflict of opinions on what's more sustainable. I get that, but I'm more of a naturalist. I personally,
We're going to
I
go
per
the natural route. On this show, we definitely know we don't want lab grown anything for internal consumption. Like, let's be real. Let's get back to the way nature intended and live more in rhythm with the earth and
yeah,
understand, okay, if something's
exactly.
not available or it's dying off or whatever, then what is the cause? And let's rectify that.
Totally.
So mushrooms, we got mycelium, the underground
Hmm.
network. We've got the fruiting body, what we think of as the mushroom when we see it. And then we've got spores. I want to talk about spores a
Hmm.
little bit later, but
Sure.
okay, let's talk about so mushrooms in terms of health. Is there different benefits in the mycelium? Is there different benefits in the fruiting body? Some say fruiting body is better, some say the mycelium's better. What is
Hmm.
your opinion on that? And what are the similarities of health benefits that each of the main mushrooms that we know of, the common ones, are providing for us?
Well, I'll first start talking about fruiting body and mycelium. That's become a big thing, like over the last, and it's dying off a little bit. But it was like there was a heyday there where people were so against mycelium. The marketing campaign saying that all mycelium is trash out there, saying like medicinal mushroom products with mycelium are a lot of grain filler. It's an easy marketing campaign to promote a fruiting body product from China to kind of get that, and it worked, right? And people believe that. We still get questions, odd email people asking because those marketing approaches, it's kind of like the dual extract with medicinal mushrooms. Some of those things won't fully die out, or and they're a little bit more convoluted, or how's a better way to say this? They're a little bit more nuanced than what the marketing angle comes off as. But just like you said, there's the mycelial network, right? That's what's under the ground, in the substrate, in the tree. That's the intelligent aspect, right? That's you could think of a with a tree analogy, that would be kind of the roots of a tree, but it's actually the intelligent aspect of the medicinal mushroom, right? The fungi kingdom is like the mushroom is the mycelium. And when it goes to reproduce, it puts out something called a fruiting body, right? It makes a fruit. That fruit goes to maturity, releases spores in the environment, right? That's all for reproductive activity, right? So traditionally, fruiting bodies were what were collected and what were used. And fruiting bodies are amazing. Like the chemistry in mushrooms is fantastic. I'm not only a fan of what we know as more of the medicinal mushrooms, but the culinary mushrooms as well. Like, I think people should be incorporating these in their diet, obviously from like clean organic sources, but into their diet ongoing, right? Like, I literally consider buying organic shiitake mushroom from the store as part of my health and wellness budget, so to speak,
Okay.
right? Buy a pack of shiitake mushrooms, throw them in soup, especially over winter, slow cooker, let them cook down. Like I literally consider that, right? It's food, but again, lack of a better term, medicine as well. The mycelium, it is kind of beyond our comprehension at this point. And again, there was a big marketing campaign slagging on it. Most North American growers started with mycelium, from my understanding, mostly due to Paul Stamens, which I think we owe a huge debt of gratitude for. He's one of the leading kind of mycologists behind mycelium cultivation. And the man knows his stuff. And so it's easy to market against his products saying that there are a lot of fillers. Now, when we look at how mycelium is cultivated or medicinal mushroom products are cultivated, they're originally grown on grain substrate to harness that mycelium, right? Well, now maybe back in the very beginning, there was a little bit of guess and test. Things maybe weren't done correctly, weren't done the right way. So was there grain starch in the final product? This is what the whole marketing thing is that mycelium product loaded with grain filler. Is it true that maybe some at the beginning, like we're talking, well over a decade ago, that maybe weren't up to par where they're fully myceliated end products, like the substrate fully myceliated? Yeah, it's possible, right? The problem is that, or I should say that the twofold approach is that one, we've learned so much in the past like 10 years on growing medicinal mushrooms. The technology is advancing like rapidly. Number two, the testing methods, I always find is, I don't know if the right word is dubious, but I find that standardization or testing methods behind medicinal mushrooms are all over the map. You know, my own experience sending results to different labs, different results all the time. They're never like, you would think that you send it to lab A and B, you're going to get the same result. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. Okay, so why is that? Because the testing methods are a little bit like janky. They're just not fully like exact science, in my opinion. This is just my opinion from my knowledge and my experience. So saying that, you're testing something, showing up with, so they would test these old time products. They would have a huge amount of alpha-glucan content in them. Oh, well, that's rice starch in it. It's not the beta-glucans that you'd find in a medicinal mushroom. So these are loaded with grain filler. The whole aspect that's missing from this, like the full understanding, is that the aspect of fermentation when it comes to mycelium growing and medicinal mushroom cultivation is that mycelium, when you're feeding it a substrate, usually a grain substrate. Why is that? Because one, they like it. It's easy to train or easier to train a mushroom to that grain substrate to eat it because it enjoys it. It likes it. There's a lot of fibers and beneficial compounds that mycelium enjoy out of it. But number three is that end product, that fermented substrate of mycelium, is now a fermented myceliated substrate. It becomes a different compound that humans can consume not only safely, but it is a massive superfood. So what these marketing campaigns are calling grain filler are missing the point. It would be similar to, and forgive me if I'm on a tangent here, I just find this is important to tell people, but this is similar to like when you're fermenting sauerkraut, you're starting with cabbage, water, salt. At the end of that fermentation process, that brine is not salt water.
No.
That's a probiotic rich soup broth, basically broth. That superfood broth is totally different than the starting inputs. Why? The magic of fermentation, right? There was a term which science doesn't allow anymore, but it was transmutation. I still love that idea of transmutation because I think it's legit. I think they're hiding that from us. But they're transmuting these substances into new compounds. Well, that was the same with medicinal mushrooms and mycelium grown on grain. So when the mycelium is eating this grain substrate, they're not only secreting their own, if you look at it, I'll back up a little bit. If you look about how mycelium grows, right? We're talking about in a tree, in the ground, like in wood. They've evolved with this external immune system and external digestive system. So they secrete compounds into their environment in order to consume what they're going to eat, right? All these enzymes, a slurry of compounds go into this environment. Not only that, but their immune system exudes from them to protect their digestive system, which is external to their cellular structure, in order to be safe against the dank, dark areas of a forest, let's say, where there's a lot of pathogens out there. So they've evolved to put out this immune system and this digestive system in order to consume food so that they can evolve, they can grow, and eventually reproduce, right? Well, we've realized that, hey, if we can do the same function on a consumable product like grain, we can now eat this and consume this, and we're getting that external immune system secreted by the mycelium, that external digestive system excreted by the mycelium, and this whole this whole angle of what they excrete is loaded with these new novel compounds. One being, I don't know if you're familiar with EPS, but external, have you heard of that? Exopolysaccharides? But it's an external polysaccharides, which is different than an internal polysaccharides. So when we talk about beta-glucans with medicinal mushrooms, those are in the cell wall of a mushroom, right? They're in the mycelium, they're in the fruiting body. The mycelium, because again, they're the living aspect of the mushroom, they have something called an exopolysaccharide. So again, portions of their immune system are excreted out. We're finding these types of polysaccharides are specific allies to the human digestive system. This is something you'll only get with mycelium. So what are these? This is just one example of many different novel chemistries that they're secreting, but these things called EPS for short, exopolysaccharides, they are not only have, again, preliminary found, because again, new novel compounds, but it looks to be that because they are something called it's a heteropolysaccharide, which means like a multi-sugar chain molecule, or a beta-glucan is a single sugar chain molecule. So these now multi-chain sugar polysaccharides have an activity that when we consume them, just like beta-glucan, they make it through the stomach acid, they hit the digestive tract. They have all these branched sugars like mannose, glucose. These sugars cause a cross-feeding of bacteria in the gut. Usually exclusive, and I hate to say this yet because this is still preliminary and we haven't necessarily proven this, but what do we prove? That's a whole other topic. But feeding beneficial bacteria. So we see that they're more digested or more, what's the right word? They have a greater affinity towards bifidum bacteria, lactobacilli, bacteroides, like those beneficial probiotic strains for humans in our gut. So these exopolysaccharides specifically feed those bacteria. Not only that, exopolysaccharides are mucilagenic by nature. When we consume them, there's theory now that they're also soothing the digestive tract. They're feeding the microbiome. What does this do? This can help clear things like, and I'm not saying this is a cure-all, but what do we assume, or if you think about it, what could that possibly fix? Things like leaky gut, right? Inflammatory bowel issues, right? They're causing a tightening juncture of the mucous membranes in the intestines. When they're feeding these bacteria, what do these bacteria produce? It's kind of a big, well, I think it's a big buzzword. At least it is in my life the last several years, but something called butyrate, right? Short chain fatty acids, which you're probably familiar with. Massive explosion of butyrate production when you're consuming these exopolysaccharides. Again, this is only from mycelium, right?
And
We don't find these.
all of the cultivated, like all the medicinal mushrooms that we're familiar with, they're mycelium or specific ones?
No, all the ones that we know of. The interesting thing is that they all are slightly different, but
Yeah,
as a group, their activity. That's more on the cutting edge of what we're trying to figure out now. Okay, so what is the reishi mushroom exopolysaccharide do? What does the Maitake EPS do? Right? We're trying to figure that out. And again, science, I always think, take it with a grain of salt. But as an overall group, we see that, hey, we get an upregulation of butyrate by tenfold. So for those of you out there that are rushing to get to your Ozempic and GLP-1, well, what is something that butyrate does? Has a GLP-1 activity in the human body. What else does butyrate do? Seals up the digestive tract, heals the mucous membrane. Well, what else does butyrate do? Transcend the body up to the brain, stopping brain inflammation, right? There's a what is a brain? I can't remember the acronym, but basically neurotransmitters for the brains, right? Neuron regrowth for the brain, right? Stopping that brain inflammation for things like, dementia or just cellular aging in the human body. So this is the stuff I find really exciting. When only a few years ago, people were ready to throw mycelium under the bus,
right.
being like, oh, it's a cheap filler, a cheap product. It is so like, again, going back to your original question, why I started this company, it's taking that step back and say, hey, how can we honor the intelligence of nature? What can we figure out how Mother Nature has done correctly the first time and utilize that into our life? This is one of those examples, right? Mycelium is so fascinating, and we have the ability to go out and get something to consume that mycelium easy and safely. Now, besides all of these other novel chemistry that the mycelium secrete that we're getting from a mycelium product, they're also fermenting that substrate. So we keep it real where we're going with biodynamic organic brown rice for our mushrooms that we grow. Why? Because they have the highest amount of fermentability, specifically turning the fibers of those rice granules or rice grains into something called arabinoxylanes, which are now and have been for a while, but studied for their immunological effect in general. So not only are we getting the slurry or the broth that the mycelium is creating, we're now fermenting that rice into like this healing superfood. So it's like a win-win-win, and people were missing that mark. People are going, sorry to rant on this, but people are going for the highest potency extract you can, right? Let's get this. We want 100x, we want 10x. And I'm like, you maybe need to take a step back
Right.
and see like how this whole food can help heal you more, right?
Yes.
And I think proof is in the, like we're a small fish in a massive pond. And why have we survived this long? Because we're sticking true to our roots, providing someone that hardly anybody is, like no one's producing kind of what we're doing. And I've been through it all, all the marketing campaigns, holding firm to the message. And it's finally coming full circle that we're realizing, hey, this is just the tip of the iceberg on novel chemistry that we're not fully understanding yet.
Right.
And that's what excites me. Now getting back to your differences between the two and similarities, we do find unique chemistry alone within the cell structure of mycelium and fruiting bodies. One of the big ones I like to point out is lion's mane. Lion's mane has different diterpenes in the mycelium and the fruiting body. One of the most well-studied brain nootropic factor terpene is in the mycelium called erinacines, right? There's hericenones and erinacines. Those are in mycelium only. So if you really wanted like a 1-2 punch for a lion's mane product, you probably should get something with fruiting body and mycelium to get that synergistic effect.
Right.
Doesn't mean that one by themselves is going to be lesser or better, but if the option exists to get something that combines both, like ours does, you're probably better off, just saying, probably better off covering all your bases, right? By
Yeah.
getting something like that, that's checking all those boxes. So,
And for people just to, if you're not familiar with lion's mane, folks, lion's mane is a very popular mushroom these days because we know it as the brain mushroom, right? For cognitive function, for concussions, just for just even being able to, like, I noticed that it helps me if I haven't been able to get my words and I notice I'm a little bit slower on the uptake. Within a week of my lion's mane, and I'll notice different results, right? So also just damage to the nerves. My husband had a double hip replacement last year, and he was having nerve damage. He had nerve damage and nerve pain in one leg out of the two. Very frustrating. Mega dosed him on lion's mane. The difference in 2 days was incredible. Incredible. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's so amazing. Like, I mean, and medicinal mushrooms in general get better the longer you take them for. Like, this is also what people are understanding. Like, I don't know if you find as much anymore, but when I used to cruise the health food stores, you'd find people recommending, oh, cold and flus, here's a mushroom product to a sick person. Go home and take this. Not that it won't help, and there is some benefit, pardon me, to like reishi mushroom that acutely, but over time, medicinal mushrooms help upgrade your immune system. They help it work better and better and more efficiently the longer you're consuming them. And so it doesn't even need to be like a lot. It just needs to be kind of this ongoing approach to get the maximum benefit, right? So when we talked at the beginning about that protective approach to health and wellness, again, mushrooms in general fit that box where it's like, hey, these foods that I'm putting in my body, in my diet, are going to ramp my system up and protect me ongoing in the future, right?
Right.
Let's plan for tomorrow, today, so to speak.
And let's do that. That's the problem. One of the big things with modern society. I'm hungry. Oh, where's the next drive-through? What can I do to do something for today without thinking of the impact or the desire for longevity and health and wellness decades into the future, right?
Totally.
We have no ability, no forward-looking thinking. I mean, look, we could see that from what happened in the past 6 years, how people needed they would do something to get an immediate benefit without thinking of the long-term consequences or the potential that, that it might change and you won't have to do certain things to be able to get access to certain places in the future. But we won't talk. So,
Yeah.
okay. So back to so your products contain fruiting body, and so you have two different kinds on your site, right? We've got North Organics, but there's also other ones. Maybe if we have time, we'll see. I can see there's a lot to talk about here. We might have to do a number 2 follow-up, but let's just talk about the North Organics brand. We're talking mycelium and fruiting body in those products.
Yeah,
Right?
and there's I think you mentioned this before too. There's spores of reishi mushroom that we offer as well. The spores again are a different facet of the medicinal mushroom. Again, some similar chemistry in there, but there is uniqueness in every one of these aspects. So the reishi spores, for example, if this is a good time to bring it up, I don't know,
Yes, it is.
Sasha.
And by the way, one of my favorite products, just had a spoonful this morning. One of my favorites, always.
Totally.
Yes.
Me too. Like honestly, again, if you were to name some of my top favorite things, that would be top of the list. If you're looking for something to ground your body, to ground you out, to calm your mind, I used to teach a class on modern day living with anxiety and adrenal fatigue and all these things. And like anxiety in general is becoming like this modern day epidemic. And
Huge.
they found in mouse studies how, like, if they put a stressed out mouse in a population, every other mouse will attune to that, right? And they'll all start to be stressed and have anxiety. So we live in this modern world where everyone's kind of anxious, and I get it, right? It's not like I never feel anxious often because I'm living in modern world, so to speak. One of the greatest tools that I have in my toolbox is reishi mushroom spores by far,
Totally.
you know. And if it gets out of hand for those people, because I know it can be debilitating, but if you're dealing with really hard anxiety or panic, or like where it's to a really more extreme side of it, the combination of reishi mushrooms and then taking some amino acid called L-theanine together, which is found in green tea, or drinking green tea, taking your reishi spores and drinking some tea, the benefits are amazing. Like I have not found a better combo with medicinal mushrooms out of anything other than that whole green tea synergy reishi mushroom, especially for stress, anxiety, rounding it out. So it's my one like non-negotiable. I always say reishi mushroom spores. Now the spores, again, like the fruiting body, are rich in triterpenes or terpenoid fraction. There is differences between them. And again, if you try to research it, you'll find one site says this, one site says that. The whole mapping of them haven't been completed yet, in from my understanding. But basically, what the layperson needs to know is that reishi mushroom spores, for that anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, but stress reduction standpoint, the spores are just like reishi mushroom on steroids. Just so much better, such a better bang for the buck, even though they're more expensive upfront. They're just so profound in activity that I love them personally.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah. I've had a couple of people come over that were super stressed. I think I've told you this before, where I give them a little bit of kombucha, like usually my homemade kombucha, and
Nice.
some spores. And I dissolve that in there and I give them just a little tonic, just like that. And it has
Nice.
been profound for a few people. One guy, it was incredible. An hour later, he's like, "What did you just give me?" Because he was a wreck, a disaster. And it really shifted him quite quickly.
Mhm.
So it's very quick, very profound. And a lot for sleep, I find. A lot of people, especially if they have that monkey mind going on at nighttime and it won't shut off, the
Totally.
spores to help
Totally.
calm that down.
Yeah, you feel the shift in brain chemistry, right? Like they've even shown how after consuming reishi mushrooms, especially terpenoid rich reishi mushroom, you'll get that, which is spores are, you'll get that shift into alpha brainwave state, away from that beta brainwave state, right? That anxiety. You can literally feel the shift. Like it always surprises me, yet just like amazes me that I'll realize, hey, within like, an hour, 2 hours, be like, I am a totally different person than I was a few hours ago.
Right.
That shift is for real, and especially like if you're getting, anxiety to go out in public or do things, or like, okay, I got to prepare for this. You're putting some reishi spores before you go out, like into your drink, like you're saying, or do a little tonic of it. It's like you've got a bulletproof vest on. You're like bulletproof to the world. It's total game changer. Total game changer.
I love them. I love them. Okay. So you have a lot of mushrooms. So tell us some of the similar benefits to mushrooms. For somebody, say I don't know about the mushrooms, or I've only tried one. I've heard that lion's mane is good for my brain, and so they go to that one. But what are some of the overlapping benefits that the mushrooms have for our physiology? And then let's just pick a few of the ones why you would want to do this. What's the best way to do it? Somebody who doesn't know, and they're starting, they're just like, oh my God, there's so many. I don't know what to do. What do I do? How do I start this? I want to try.
I always think the best approach is to get on blend products to start. Like if you're totally overwhelmed and you're not like specifically looking for, say, a neurological benefit with lion's mane or, you know, crazy immune radiation protection from turkey tail, right? Um, or insulin like benefits from Maitake. Starting on something that's blended together can definitely hit a lot of bases. So I always tell people to get on a blend or see if you can find one that's got multiple blends. The overlap is always so seamless. Basically, there's no right or wrong way to take medicinal mushrooms or even which ones you take, especially when it comes to immune function or immunological response in the human body. Any of them are going to provide some physiological benefit to you, right? So getting on a blend, I think, is an easy place to start. Now, if you know you're dealing with something like, heart related, liver related, kidney related, then hey, maybe you want to go or stress, you want to go with reishi mushroom, right? Always look to what I talk about at the doctrine of signature, not something I made up. People can research it on their own. But it's basically looking at the herb, looking what it resembles, or observing, I should say, what it resembles in the natural world might be what it's good for. So when we look at like a reishi mushroom, which I don't think I have one on my desk here, but reishi mushroom, kind of looks like a heart, looks like a liver, looks like a kidney. It's probably good for those things. When we look at lion's mane, it looks like a brain with the neurons, right? It looks like nerves coming down,
Yeah.
probably good for nerves, right? We can kind of follow that approach. But again, stress, overall immune function, reishi mushroom is amazing. If you want to boost that up after getting on a blend, if you're looking for not only cognitive support, but lion's mane is one of these ones that traditionally was used to heal all tubes in the body, right? It's very anti-inflammatory for all tubes. So what are other tubes in the body? So yeah, the nerves or the neurons in the brain are tubes, right? Nerves are tubes, but so is the whole digestive tract, right? We have a big long tube that starts here and comes out the other end. That's a tube solid through the human body. Lion's mane is amazing for that GI tract as well. So we can put a little bit more lion's mane on top. Say if we know we have a weakened immune system, but also we deal with blood sugar problems, insulin related problems, we probably want to use Maitake, right? If we know we have digestive issues, Maitake, Maitake, Maitake. Maitake is one of these ones that, for whatever reason, doesn't get the publicity that the other ones
No,
do.
it's
Not sure
underrated.
why.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like Maitake has the most glutathione out of any of the medicinal mushrooms.
Oh,
I can give or take because, lab results are always going to vary. But let's just say it's a very rich source of glutathione, right? Can help upregulate. Actually, they all can, reishi as well, but upregulate your own antioxidant defense mechanisms in the human body. So Maitake, not only taking it for glutathione, which if you're unfamiliar with, it's a master antioxidant in the human body, can help also upregulate something called superoxide dismutase, right? SOD, which again is the other like main antioxidant in the human body, right? Keeping our cell integrity intact. So, if you're dealing with, like I said, blood sugar, insulin, immune, you need some anti-aging effects going on. Let's try Maitake. That's probably a really good benefit for you. If we're dealing with something that's occurring where we have a lot of mutant cells coming on, people are dealing with they're going through either chemo or radiation. They really need an immunological boost, and I say that loosely because medicinal mushrooms in general modulate your immune system. They don't fight for you, they make you work better, right? Even though Maitake has glutathione in it, it's going to upregulate your antioxidant system. They're all about bringing balance, coherence to the human body. So they're balancing you out. But if you're looking for that real effective immune system balance, turkey tail would be the one that I would call upon. I would start putting some more turkey tail in there, right? You have like maybe some weird growths going on, cells multiplying, turkey tail. You're exposed to a lot of radiation or EMFs, turkey tail, probably good, right? That's something you should
Yeah,
probably
and
consume.
that's beneficial for all of us these days. Who's not bathed in
Yeah,
EMFs and Wi-Fi
yeah,
just everywhere? So
we're
turkey
getting,
tail is your choice for that one.
yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Again, like if you want an overall body tonic, again, you want radiation protection, you want an antioxidant approach. You might be dealing with some internal lumps or bumps. Maybe chaga is a good one. Chaga tea is a good one, right? Consuming chaga,
Mhm.
right? People are always forgetting about the power of chaga, and it's super rich in antioxidants.
Yeah.
So again, they each kind of have their little claim to fame, but there is a decent overlap between them, and that's what makes them so easy. It makes them so easy. It's more about not which ones to take. It's like more about getting on them and taking them and staying on them, for periods of time. Little bits now, right? Ongoing, avoiding big problems later. That's what I always say, right? So that's kind of the most important aspect.
Cordyceps. You didn't mention cordyceps.
Cordyceps, yeah. So cordyceps is really interesting. So cordyceps is one of these things where, again, fruiting body mycelium, both amazing. But mycelium, I think, I shouldn't say has a slight advantage. One thing that's really interesting about mycelium is it's rich in cordycepin, which is a molecule in cordyceps. Cordycepin is chemically similar, almost identical. I don't know if they would call it an analog, but something called adenosine, similar to adenosine.
Right? Yeah.
What is adenosine, right? It's the A in ATP,
Yeah.
adenosine triphosphate. So cordyceps especially cordyceps mycelium, it's a major energy booster, energy donator to the cell, right? If you're suffering from low mitochondrial function, right, or you're just tired and fatigued all the time, you're having trouble breathing, cordyceps is where it's at, right? How it helps metabolize oxygen so much better. This cordycepin basically creates more cellular energy for the body, specifically for the lungs, but opening up and utilizing that oxygen so much better. Cordyceps is also interesting how it actually has an affinity to help scrub or stimulate, I should say, certain parts of the lymphatic system, right? Specifically, your actually mesenteric lymph nodes in your digestive tract. Cordyceps is actually helping those microcapillaries in that area kind of squeeze that immune system or that, lymphatic system to get it moving, right? So most people back in the day knew cordyceps as like a libido tonic. And
Yes.
while yes, you might have the best Friday night of your life taking some cordyceps, but it's also going to do so much more for you, right? So much more of that fundamental approach in the human body. I always like to point out too, because of that literature out there and that kind of stigma with cordyceps, is it's not for men only. It is a very balanced yin and yang tonic, right? It's good for men and women. If you're someone who, can't get up in the morning, you're struggling, you're wheezing after a little bit of physical exertion, you just don't have that dynamic energy that you used to have, or even the static energy of like sitting at a desk, like sometimes that can be exhausting. Cordyceps is the go-to. And I'm predicting a real resurgence for cordyceps coming back
Ah,
because I think as modern life goes on, people are just getting more tired. They're polluting us with more stuff all the time. Not to get too out there, but they're messing with the weather. Things are looking a little shaky at times for humanity.
yeah, yeah.
And so we need all the energy, right? We need the oxygen. We need to utilize, our respiratory system as best as we can to live our best lives. Cordyceps is where it's at. So I do think that it's gonna make a huge comeback. Not that it ever went anywhere, but there was a time where cordyceps was like everyone was talking about it, the big buzz with it. I think people are going to start to embrace that again and realize how powerful cordyceps can be because
One of
it's
the more expensive ones back in the day, I think, right? Wasn't it? Cordyceps was very dear.
yeah, yeah. And so now that the amazing thing is, even when I started this, you could only get Cordyceps mycelium because we hadn't figured out how to grow Cordyceps fruiting body, also called a stroma, but that club-like mushroom in a grow setting. Now people can grow certain specific varieties of Cordyceps, like Cordyceps militaris is what we carry. So you're able to actually get fruiting body components, mycelium components now into one product. So back in the day, spending, so much money on cordyceps fruiting body. We don't need to do that anymore. You can get things that are even better and like actually affordable for people,
Yes.
but by these modern day grow techniques and practices.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell us, how do New Earth Organics mushroom products differ from a lot of the other products on the market? Why do
Well,
you go with that way of processing?
I kind of alluded to it at the beginning. Again, I'm all about like the food approach. I'm also about stepping back and seeing, hey, what is Mother Nature providing? Our kind of one of parts of our whole mission are providing the most whole aspect of these foods that we can. So when you look at medicinal mushrooms, there's these different facets, right? There's like the fruiting body, mycelium, spores, right? Fermented substrate, all these kind of aspects. And again, since the beginning, we've worked at trying to capture all of those together and provide it to people. Not saying one aspect is better, not standardizing it. People always ask, well, why don't you put, beta-glucan content on packages? Because it doesn't really matter in the end of the day, in my opinion. It matters about getting the most whole aspect of that food you can and consuming it. Who's just like my understanding is that, when we're standardizing certain products for high amounts of component X, you might be missing Y and Z because it's pushing those out, right? If we're just looking for that magic bullet, we're possibly missing all these novel full spectrum parts of the mushroom, so to speak, right? So we've tried to capture that from the beginning. Processes are not crazy in terms of no solvents, like no chemical solvents used. It's using a process using water and pressure, right, to extract these mushrooms, help break down that chitin, that fibrous cell wall. And really, the full life cycle of the mushroom is grown, full life cycle. So we're getting like the fully fermented substrate, fruiting body, all aspects of it, and all encompassed into one. A lot of the times people prefer, and we do have different type of extracts where fibers removed. I still am always going to remain that the prebiotic effect of a whole mushroom powder is just so much more profound than an extract. Are you going to get prebiotic effect from any sort of mushroom extract? Yeah, because there's beta glucans in there, but you're not going to get the real prebiotic effect if that
Right.
makes sense. You're going to get what it has to offer.
Right.
And like when we look more, the more you learn about microbiome, our bacteria in our system, how we operate as humans, like our digestive system is everything, right? Our gut health is so important for our overall being. So if we're giving it, a mushroom powder that has all these synergistic components in it that is actually feeding our microbiome in a more efficient or more full aspect, I think that's more important than just looking for a high beta glucan content. And that's besides the point of, like I told you, sending different labs, getting different beta glucan contents.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you have to pick one and go with it, and that's fine because it is what it is. But I just like to take a step back from all that modern chemistry a lot of the time and just try to provide something that's really fundamental, full, whole, organic, because I think that's what our human body wants.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're always trying to find that one primary active ingredient, but there's never a single active ingredient that grows without everything else. It doesn't work independently. And that's the thing. We think that the body parts work independently of one another, but it's a system, right? Everything works together in a system, and we are part of the outer system, and we have a system inside, and there's a system within the mushroom and the system within the food, and it all works together. We try to isolate everything all the time, right?
Totally.
But
Yeah,
for
for sure.
some people who do want the extract versions, because you've got your organics ones, they're not going to dissolve, right? You've got the extract versions. You do have those offerings as well. That are also beneficial. It's just different.
Absolutely, and very potent what they are. And so all the differences between the two is that one is the fiber removed
Yes.
and the other one does not, right? So that's your biggest thing. So you're missing out a little bit of the prebiotic effect,
Yeah.
but you're also getting more of that chemistry that has been studied so much. So, for those people, I really wanted to satisfy, like more of my vision too is also to, okay, instead of saying one is the best, why don't we just give everybody everything and kind of let them choose? Like I'm always going back to taking your own horse by the reins. Like this is about your journey and your health and wellness. So if you've read something and you think, oh, this is way better, that's what I want, that's usually going to work better for you because the mind is so powerful, right? Call it
Yeah.
placebo, call it whatever. So if you think that's the best, that's going to help you the most.
Right.
So why wouldn't I want to help facilitate your healing by offering you all these different avenues? I do, right? So, hey, if you want to do that, because I get this question. So which one is the best all the time?
Yes.
It's impossible. It's an impossible question to answer.
Right.
People are different. Our thoughts are different, right? Our biochemistry, even though similar, we all have this biochemical individuality, but thoughts are things. And if you think this is the best, then that's going to be the best for you. I like to take a step back. I'm not heavily into, marketing myself or even the company or ever saying we're the best. I always take the step back because I want to let people be guided towards that, right? It's your path, your journey. Marketing is amazing, but it's also become this vicious thing. So hey, we're just here for you. You want to come and embrace that. If you're on that wavelength, we're here for you. We're going to support you as best we can. But I'm not telling you what to do, right? This is your journey. So again, if you think that this product is the best, go for it. And so for those people that want something that they can add to their coffee that completely dissolves, we have options for that, right?
And
If
some
you want
people
to just throw
want
it
that. Yeah. Sorry. Go
they
ahead.
definitely no, and that's fine. And that's the thing is like I'd rather you take this and utilize this on your journey than not. So here you go, right? Like we're working on all sorts of different things. Like I have like new ones coming out too, which are again, this is like an extracted fruiting body that we're working on.
Oh,
Yeah, we're working on solubility with that, right? So now we're taking what we have now and making just a little bit more soluble, finer grinding. It's kind of a longer story on how we're creating that, but basically trying to hit all those bases for people that, you know, we want to cater to the like-minded individuals because, we might be the only ones left standing on the planet at one time. No, I'm just kidding. But
well,
we want
hey,
to
you never
communicate
know.
with
You
you
never
guys.
know.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
we got to build that community, right? That conscious community is what I'm meaning.
totally. Totally.
And however we can support that, then that's why we're here, right? So
Yeah.
humbled by all the people that, all the customers, all the good feedback that we receive. Like it's extremely humbling, right? This isn't about me. It's not about one company. It's a lifestyle approach, and we want people to come on board with that lifestyle approach, right? The
100%.
more of us, the better.
And the more needed forever now than ever, right?
So,
The more needed. So, a couple things. I just want to touch on. I know we got to go really quickly here, but want to
yep.
touch on a couple other of your products quickly. But one big question is, a lot of people are dealing with the C word that I don't really want to talk about because I don't want this to get censored and pulled. But people say, well, what's the best one for this? And what's the best one for that? And what is the approach on that? Because there's a lot of research around that. And there's a lot of people, that's what they would go to as one of the things when they're dealing with that. So are we doing a blend? Are we looking at where the air, where it is and specifically
Mhm.
choosing ones? Are we layering them? What do you say quickly for that? And then I just want to talk about a couple other things within the last few minutes.
Yeah, so quickly with that, because it is a little bit nuanced, but again, a blend, it's kind of the same as a protective approach. Blend product, getting like a wider spread, let's say,
Yeah.
wider spread in your diet, and then kind of looking at more of the individual, the archetype of the individual, the person, what they're dealing with, where it is, and layering on top, right? So it would depend, but the interesting thing is you can still find a lot of info that is valid online for sure, dealing with specific things. So if someone has like a diagnosis, they need to get more healthful foods in their body. They can literally do research nowadays and find, hey, this one might be good for me. This is showing some benefit. Honestly, like medicinal mushrooms and foods in general are not solving the whole issue. It's also about taking that step back and hitting those fundamentals like we went over, right? Not only good food, but good water, clean air, sleep. All those things are fundamental, right? So if you really want to turn it around, you have to nail all those. There's no magic bullet. And you do hear about stories where people, oh, I just did this and now I'm fine. And that's amazing, right? But I still think you need to hit all the fundamentals first and then layer these foods on top of it. You need to clean up your diet, all these different aspects.
And also
But when it comes,
this is a huge one for a lot of people. Oh, I just did this and this, but what you can't take out the mind and the mindset, right?
totally,
That's
totally,
massive.
totally. And say there's no, just because we have some blend products There's nothing saying that you couldn't just blend your own at home. There's no right or wrong. Like it's so easy. Like it's so safe and easy. Like these are foods. I can't stress that enough. These are foods, right? People cook with these, make tea with these. It's food. So you're not going to overdo it. You're not going to, you buy a bag of this, buy a bag of this, throw them together, put them in a smoothie or whatever you're drinking, drink it back, throw it, Sasha knows me. We became famous for that medicinal mushroom popcorn years ago, right?
Yeah,
Making
yeah,
popcorn,
yeah.
whatever, putting medicinal mushroom powder all over it. It's phenomenal, right? It's fantastic. The flavors, the chemistry in there, the bitter compounds, the sweet compounds, getting it all together. Easy, easy, easy peasy. So basically just getting it in is best. But ideally looking for a blend, or if you find one that's specific to what you're dealing with, go for that and don't be shy with it.
And so just so you know, Derek's got amazing popcorn as well, amazing salt, amazing the Liver Life mushroom blend or the 16 mushroom blend. They're both really good on the popcorn. Put some grass-fed butter on there. Oh my God, you're good to go. So good. Okay, so quickly, you have I mean, Derek has so many things. He has amazing berry powders. He has teas. He has my favorite salt, the salt that I put in my water. So I've got your salt in here right now with some humic and fulvic acid, right? I've got your pearl powder. Everybody's talking pearl these days. So I snapped a tendon in my pinky finger here. I'm thinking elk velvet antler might be helpful at this time. What are you thinking for something like this? What if something needs to regrow and help and heal? What kind of things? What are some of your favorites? And what do you think about elk velvet antler for my snap tendon?
I think that's definitely what I would do is velvet antler. Just because it's so beneficial, got all those nutrients in it for tendons and joints and overall health like that. So I would definitely be getting that in. If
Yeah.
you think again, tendons are tubes, I would be thinking lion's mane as well. Could be helping with that.
Okay.
If you're thinking about tendons, like we're just talking about your tendons for a little bit, if you don't mind, we get a little tendon on your tendons. There's also like a liver aspect of tendons governed by the liver in Chinese medicine.
Right.
So you just want to support that liver, right, as best you can, right? We're in summer season right now, which is traditionally the season of the heart, but we can look at something that's like a heart and liver tonic. What would that be from the mushroom kingdom? That would be like reishi mushroom
Yeah.
would be really good. One food that is amazing for healing, and I think they say it's up to 3 times fast is jujube dates, so red dates.
Which
And
we
I
have, by the way, you guys. Right.
we have the
Okay.
best red dates, which are like I say nature's marshmallow, eating them. So you eat like 3 dates a day, so to speak, or roughly, I should say, 3 to 4. You can, if you're like my kids, you'll eat like bags full per day or per week of them. But getting those in the diet will definitely help accelerate that healing. And so,
Okay.
what was your other question? Just the tendon, or
That was just the tendon, but some people are really interested in pearl powder. But like literally, we've got 2 minutes here. But let's just talk quickly pearl powder. That's one of your newer additions to the line.
Mhm.
I've had it for a little while, but that's really gotten a lot of attention lately. So let's talk about
pearls have
pearl,
been
and then we'll finish.
sure, yeah. So pearl is an amazing, and again, with your tendon, pearl would be one I would add into that. Pearl is an amazing food, right? It's the nice thing about, or the neat thing about pearl is we're using modern science in terms of nano grinding it, that we can actually consume the pearl more efficiently and easily. So it's just a powder. You can use it orally as well, in your tooth powder, toothpaste. You can sprinkle it on there.
I can
It
make
has some really interesting chemistry where it has mucopolysaccharides, right? These are building blocks of mucous membranes, very soothing for the body. Kind of one of its most famous aspects is something called conchiolin. Well, that's a protein that's actually what the shell is made of, um, like a shell of a mollusk or like a oyster or clam or
yeah.
but pearl is made of this conchiolin protein polysaccharide. So it's a protein-bound polysaccharide that is basically giving that pearl or the shell structure how it's so rigid, but it actually flexes and moves. This is what conchiolin is doing for your body as well. So its most famous aspect is how it helps the skin, giving it like a firm, strong appearance, but also giving it fluidity. So it's not cracking, right? So that's where it's really powerful as a skin tonic. but it's a nourishing agent, right? You can think of it similar as to antler velvet, where it's an internal nourishing agent for the body. So yes, pearl's been known to help tranquilize the mind, calm your mind, calm the aspect of your being. But we can look at it as a very nutritive tonic food, right? If we're going to consume it, all these beneficial compounds to help rebuild the body, kind of the same as you would look at collagen, for example, taking collagen, helping rebuild the body inside and out.
Yes.
What's neat with pearl, though, is it has an affinity to heal lacerations of the mouth, gums, and throat. So this is why it can be amazing as a tooth or oral part of your oral hygiene. Putting it on your toothbrush or with a little tooth powder or paste or whatever you use, brushing the teeth with that can really benefit oral health. Boost up that mucous membrane, supporting the oral microbiome of the body. So it's really, also loaded in, like, God, I shouldn't say loaded, but it has a lot of calcium, magnesium, and minerals in it as well. But really, it's a nutritive tonic overall. Yes, people use it in skincare externally, and that's totally fine too. But consuming it part of an ongoing diet. Again, I think in the oral tooth world is probably the best aspect. But we can think of it as this nutritive tonic, helping heal and strengthening our body, making it stronger, making it more cohesive.
But having that Shen aspect at the same time, right? That calming aspect, which is very cool.
Yeah, exactly. So if you wanted like a really calming kind of blend or combination, it would be pearl and poria mushroom. Those are very tranquilizing together to the spirit. Very, very calming and sedating. Another one too that you can add into that or mix them into is jujube tea we talked about. Jujube, again, very tranquilizing, but pearl in its own right, very calming, very sedating, very conducive to good sleep, which is so important. Sleep is probably the best medicine of all.
Right.
So yeah, very, very supportive that in that aspect.
Okay. And you guys, okay, we got to go. Derek's got to take his kids somewhere, but all these products that he was just referring to, he has them on his site. He's been making them available to us for a long time. This is a gift to be able to access this type of thing. And what I love about this to me is food. I incorporate it into my matcha latte, into my dandy blend drinks, into my baking, into my pancakes, into whatever, my yogurt, my granola, into your soups, sprinkle it on your rice, sprinkle it on your eggs. You can make this your food and upgrade what you're consuming all day long, every day, without popping a million different pills and getting this wonderful benefit. And they taste good, like the popcorn. It's delicious. There's so many amazing things. So check out newearthorganics.com. Use the code SASHA10, SASCHA10 to save on that, because there's no time to start but now. When we have to be forward thinking, we have to think about the future. We are not getting healthier. We are not getting more resilient. In fact, quite the opposite. So it's time to really take control of our health. And this is one way. And this is a Canadian product within Canada. So Canadians, we've got some of the best right here. I've got some of the best right outside Calgary, and been using it every day for a very long time. Thank you, Derek. We're going to have to do this again. There's a lot more to talk about. Yeah, I know you got to go, but so much knowledge. Oh, my pleasure. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. So the next time, not so long before the next one. Any last words for everybody?
No, I just want to thank you for having me on, listening to me get on my soapbox a little bit and ramble on. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
There's always lots to talk about. This stuff excites me, right? It's passion driven. This is a lifestyle. Personally, I'm in it for the long haul, and I think other people need to come embrace that type of aspect and get on board so that we can all live our best lives ever. Help change the world.
100%. Thank you, Derek. Okay, guys, so live your best lives ever. And, if you haven't gotten into the medicinal mushrooms, give them a try. Okay, guys, thanks for listening. And please share this. I know this interview is going to benefit a lot of people. Thanks again. Ciao.